Please return to your seats. Class is now in session at usaprepares.com. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text 417-200-4715. And now, Vincent Finelli and Mark Wright.
Thank you for listening to USA Prepares on KWTO 560 AM, the Talk of the Ozarks, where we're talking about the converging threat of bad government today. We got Tom Martz from TYCOA and also one of the founders of the Locke Smith Awards. Okay, let's summarize before the break. Okay, so there's an accumulation of a point system on every bill that legislators vote on. You base it upon the Constitution. Whoever gets the most accumulated points after you analyze all the legislation, then you award one senator and one representative with the Locke Smith Award. Okay, so you had your first presentation dinner last year, and I know a lot of these legislators did not know you guys were really doing this leading up to that. So you have a winner. Now everybody in the state legislature knows what you're doing. What has been the response from the legislators as a result of what you're doing now?
Well, one of the things that we did at the beginning of this year, we have these little things called the Locke Smith Award criteria. And we had them all printed out, put them in little plastic, whatever you want to call these things.
Holders.
And we presented it to every single state legislator and state senator up on Capitol Hill.
Jeez.
Gotcha. So they know the criteria.
They know the criteria, and some of it was unique because, you know, when you're up there, some of the offices are together.
Yes, I mean, they have whole complexes where guys are in the same complex together.
But we would go in and we actually had the point scores from the previous year. Okay. And when we were presenting them with the award, well, how many points did I score last year?
Okay.
You know, and I forget who the two gentlemen were, but they were 1 point away from each other. So they made it a competition this year to find out who was going to score the most amount of points in this award. And last year, after the award ceremony, I actually had two of the current, well, they're not, now they're senators, but then they were state representatives, come up and ask me how many votes behind Cynthia Davis they were.
Okay.
Because the Locke Smith it's a granite plaque that's engraved. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a one of a kind award, because we do believe that we are the first in the United States that are awarding a constitutional award. I mean, you got pro-life, you got pro-life. I was going to say, those types of awards.
You know, Tom, I was in the legislature for 8 years, and there's a lot of special interest groups up there that have their own ranking system, I guess you could say. Really, it's not really a ranking as it is an endorsement system, like the Chamber of Commerce. They, if they endorse you for office, they base upon the endorsement on a number of legislation that would be pro-business in their consideration. Pro-life, you got Missouri Right to Life that does the same thing, and various other groups, but no other group I've ever known of actually bases the Constitution upon its ranking and its award presentation. So I think this is unique.
Well, I guess you can call us pro-Constitution. We're our own little group, and we have 8 questions that we always ask of each piece of legislation.
Now, before you go down that road, I want to make an additional point. These special interest groups get the required behavior they're looking for most of the time based upon their endorsement. So you will literally, before I took a vote, the chamber lobbyists would come to the side gallery and tell legislators, this is going to be a graded vote to determine whether or not you're going to get endorsed by the chamber or a contribution from the chamber. And legislators would vote accordingly based upon that. I know that for a fact. So let's go ahead and tell your criteria, and let's see if legislators are starting to respond in that way too.
Well, it's actually that it's funny that you say that, because there is a state senator who sent me an email one day and basically told me that we should, as a committee, we should review legislation before it's up for vote and determine what we're going to follow, like pro-gun, pro-life, pro-this, pro-business, and that way you can tell the legislators which ones that you're looking at, and they'll vote accordingly. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's trying to manipulate somebody's behavior.
That's exactly right, and that's what happens with these other special interests, where you're unique. You do it after the fact.
Yeah, because they already have the instructions. It's called the Constitution. It's not called special interest. It's not called giving your buddy a break or anything of that nature. Read it, follow it, vote accordingly.
So your point is, if you understand the Constitution and you follow the Constitution, you're not going to make a bad vote in the beginning.
That would be correct.
That means you're going to win.
That would be correct also.
Tom, would you read off the points? This is a little holder that will fit nicely on the desk. It's about the width of 2 playing cards wide, about the height of 1 playing card, and it's the rules by which the Locke Smith Award is presented. Would you please read that to the class?
Yeah, the first one is this a proper function of government? Now, anybody can go to TYCOA.com, or actually they can go to LockeandSmith.com, and the criteria is listed, and so is the defining manner in which we define these questions. The second one is, does the legislation create favoritism in any manner? Number 3 is, does the legislation have a favorable or negative impact on anything? Does the legislation create a fee-for-service scenario that only government can provide? Does the legislation impact personal liberty or freedom? Does the legislation create a means by which a government entity or government employees can abuse a taxpayer-approved tax or an amendment? Can the legislation be currently enforced under existing laws?
Wow. I love it.
I think that's a very impressive list.
And
pretty comprehensive, too.
It kind of sounds like this is a reminder that you do have a conscience and you have to turn it on.
Well, far too often, we noticed last year that they kept trying to create a means by which, they were trying to create a law that would make assaulting a sports official illegal. Well, last time I looked, assault's already illegal. It doesn't make a difference what kind of shirt you're wearing.
Sure.
So that falls under Locke Smith Criteria 8. That would get rejected.
Great.
Awesome.
I think that's awesome. Okay, so, all right, you talked a little bit about the response. What other responses have you had, positive and negative, about the Locke Smith Awards in Jefferson City?
I think the most positive one that we have is Cynthia Davis. And she has actually, and all of the bills that have been done for last year are listed on our website. They're listed whether they were accepted, whether they were rejected, and the basis for which we used for rejecting them. She, so far, is the only one that went through and looked at every single one of them and flat out sent me an email and said, had I had the list of criteria that you gave to everyone else, she said, I would have changed my vote in 15 other votes.
Interesting.
But when you've got the party leadership twisting your arm in one manner, and then you've got the Constitution sitting over here on the desk or on the counter or whatever, she said, generally, it's hard it's hard to follow your conscience 100% of the time.
Well, I agree with that, and I experienced that being in Jefferson City over the years. There are caucus positions. The Republican caucus would take a position on a bill if it was a very important vote, and then the leadership would individually put pressure on members to vote accordingly based upon whatever the special interest opinion was to get a big donation to HRCC. That did happen, and it's unethical, and it's unconstitutional in many aspects. Okay, so there's been some legislators that have complained about you doing this, and I think you told me the other day that one said you had no right to do this.
I'll call these individuals what the conservative conscience of the Senate, because they seem to think that, and he got kind of irate about people actually watching and paying attention, not only their voting record through the journal, but whether or not they actually voted. Because if they don't vote or they vote present, is that a 0 or a -1? Well, we started out with it was going to be a -2 if they voted abstain or present, which it's going to stay that way.
Okay.
The one that we had to change, and we went back through and already changed it for last year too. It wouldn't have changed anything. Last year I was given some misinformation about the absent part, absent with leave and just plain absent.
Right.
Well, come to find out, a senator can actually be in Jeff City, but he might be in the House or he might be down at someone else's office talking about a piece of legislation when a vote occurs in the Senate, which he'll be listed as absent,
right,
instead of absent with leave, because he had no way of knowing that the vote was occurring.
I don't know about that one, brother, because that bell rings, and these guys have pagers, and they got cell phones. I don't know if I'd go for that one. There's all kinds of ways to get in contact with these guys if they want to vote. So I think I'd be careful with that one.
Okay.
Vinny.
Class, we've got a meetup tonight, and Tom Martz will be there. Ziggy's, Sunshine in Glenstone, 5:30 to 7. And I just want to let you know that Tom Martz will be at the expo. He has a company called Mozark Environmental. He's in the water treatment arena. Great guy. He's going to be doing a seminar for us on water filtration and what you need to look for and how you need to have clean water. So you will get a chance to meet one of our instructors, Tom Martz, tonight at Ziggy's on the corner of Sunshine and Glenstone at the Lamplighter.
I am looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun time. We need to take our last break of the show, and we'll come back with Tom Martz of the Locke Smith Awards and also TYCOA. We're on KWTO 560 AM, the Talk of the Ozarks, and we're talking about that converging threat of bad government and how we, as citizens, can fix it.
I know there's something happening. This can be sliding. What are today's hot? Oh God, you're take my when you go to the for 2 seconds during
Class is back in session. Turn up the volume. USAPrepares.com with the original survival economist, Vincent Finelli and Mark Wright.
And we're back on USA Prepares, KWTO 560 AM, the Talk of the Ozarks. Vinny. You know, I didn't eat any lunch today, and I'm hungry. And you know who I've been thinking about all show long?
I do.
Freeze Dry Guy.
Yeah.
I think we ought to bring some in the studio so if I have a hunger attack, I can whip out some premier freeze-dry food from freezedryguy.com.
Freezedryguy.com. Hey, Mark, we've got the Inflation Deception, a free copy to our class from SwissAmerica.com, SwissAmerica.com. If you want a copy of a book that's destined to be a bestseller, it's free to our class. Free.
Yeah, you better not go to Barnes & Noble and buy this book when you can get it free from us.
Yeah. 800-630-1498. 800-630-1498.
We have to talk about our good friends. I went over and saw our friends at Missouri Storm Shelters yesterday, Jeff and Karen Olson.
Good for you.
And, man, they're good neighbors. And when you're talking about neighbors, I think it's a good idea to maybe get your neighbors together and think about buying a large, jumbo-sized storm shelter and protect half the neighborhood or half your block.
That's what we've done in our area. We've got one on the farm, and it can help all of our neighbors.
Well, I think, man, I forgot to ask Jeff and Karen to come to the meetup. We'll call them. Hopefully they'll be at the meetup today, but you can contact them, MissouriStormShelters.com, or call 417-725-0055. Missouri Storm Shelters, the premier storm shelter in America today. You can't get a better one.
417-725-0055.
We got Tom Martz here, and we were talking about the Locke Smith Awards. And, Tom, your committee puts in a lot of time and effort. I'm on your email list. I'm on your Facebook group list, and every time you're going over a piece of legislation, whether you're going to accept it or reject it, I get it, I read it. And you guys are busy bees every single day.
The committee does a yeoman's job of this, and to think they do this unpaid is absolutely amazing to me. And
Unpaid.
Unpaid. And we meet every week to review legislation. Of course, when there's no legislation being done, there's no reason to meet, but we still keep in contact with one another. But after legislation starts rolling through Jeff City, well, then we're busy from then until basically September, which is the veto session.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're meeting every week, and especially now because we've upped the amount of bills that we're doing from 100 to probably 400, 500, 600. So
I can't believe that.
We're probably doing about 30 a week.
So every member of the committee is reading the same bill, every bill, right? Or do you break them up?
Well, what we try to do is I'll read it and make a determination on whether or not it should be accepted or rejected. But just to keep the committee honest, sometimes I will do the opposite of what I should have done. If I read,
to make sure somebody's
just to make sure that
following
they're
up.
still following up. And of course, with this many pieces of bills, it's hard to do that. But we've had our debates, and you can tell there's one in there.
Yeah, I've read them
On HB 47 and HB 73. That still has not been determined how we're going with that. So it's not like everyone just falls over and says, "Okay, Tom said it was acceptable, we'll accept it." No, that doesn't happen.